Everybody, welcome again to another virtual town hall. This is town hall number 5, and I need for you to do me a favor. Go ahead and share the link. We are live right now on Facebook, on YouTube, Twitch, and Periscope. Share the link. You can follow us at champsmentoring.com/champs mentoring. So make sure you get everybody that you know, right? Maybe they don't have a brother or sister, but you know somebody that's an ally, right? Get them on so they can learn a lesson on us talking to us and telling our own narrative. We got some powerful panelists. But before I introduce our panelists for tonight, you know I have to pay homage for those who joined on last week. Yes, it was powerful and it was very emotional too. So if you tuned in last week, you heard some brothers marching in the middle of protest, going live on the west side of Chicago. Stephen Rosado, you heard Shammrie Brown. He said he was distraught. He said, I can't believe what's taking place under this administration. He's an 18-year-old on his way to Morehouse. You heard the youth speak directly to how he was feeling in this space. Then, of course, Jeff Days, he's an amazing administrator, superintendent here in the Illinois area. Then my good friend Derek Fleming Jr. got on and shared, his perspective. And he talked about something very powerful. He talked about how he failed 3rd grade, y'all, and he almost failed twice. But yet he was able to take that negative and make it a positive. That's why it's important for you not to give up on our boys and young men of color. Right. And then, of course, all the way hailing from the South Side, my brother Damian Howard joined the conversation, and he talked about the power of mental health and everything that he did in the month of May during Mental Health Month. And then, of course, yelling all the way, Quo, from the West Side, Kareem Wells. That's right. He shared some very, very powerful truths on the origin of police. He said, what was police intended for? To gather the slaves. So we are breaking some bread. We learning lessons. And then, of course, we cannot forget Dr. Shelby Wyatt, who I call the godfather of school-based mentoring, right here from the South Side of Chicago, the Kenwood Brotherhood program that he created. And he gave some very fascinating facts on the historical context, everything from what his grandmothers, his aunts taught him from many, many years ago. And so, man, we finna push this conversation forward tonight. Wait till I introduce our guest for tonight. Man, I'm so pumped and I'm so excited. So I'm gonna let these brothers introduce themselves in order, starting off with my main man, Busayo Adebayo, one of my former Gary Comer alumni, phenomenal young man. So, Mr. Adebayo, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, sir?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. My name is Busayo Adebayo. Thank you so much, Mr. Singleton, for creating this amazing platform. I really admire your hard work, leadership, tenacity, and perseverance. And I look up to you as a role model. So thank you so much. A little bit about myself. I was born and raised in Nigeria. Then I moved to the United States about 10 years ago. I now reside on the south side of Chicago. I'm also an alumni from the Gary Coleman College Prep and an active member of the Champs Mentoring Program. On the side, I work on startups. I'm an innovator and I'm also a social entrepreneur. Over the past few years, myself and a team of change makers decided to create a startup to help college students find study partners. And we did a lot of great work, but it didn't really turn out the way I wanted it. But I learned a lot from it. And a couple months ago, I transitioned into a new role as a co-founder and CMO at Virtue Mind. Here we are empowering college students by providing them with tools needed to explore their mental health at their own pace within the comfort of their home. And I'm really excited to be a part of this conversation today to talk about our Black men of color and see how we can, change the narrative and make the community a better place. So thank you once again for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And then my next brother, who's next?
What's going on, everybody? My name is Corey Anderson. I'm a professional actor and model. I'm signed to Guild Talent in the Chicago and Atlanta regions. I hail from the South Side of Chicago. I'm an educator as well. I'm also a Nike brand ambassador and Nike brand model. I also love working with the Champs Male Mentorship Program. Mr. Adebayo and all the fellow young men are my little brothers. I love them to death. I'll do anything in the world for them. I love empowering our young men to be better than they were in their yesteryears. And I'm glad to be on this call with you fine young men to help me out and help us push the culture forward. So thank you again.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Okay, and then next,
Hey, what's
Minister Brown. Go forward, my brother.
Hey, what up, everybody? I'm Shammrie Brown, a minister at New Life Covenant Church Southeast. My role is the Senior Director of Outreach and Community Development. My responsibility is basically to serve. I'm on the South Side in the Greater Grand Crossing community every single day. And my theme is to find a need and meet it. We run a food pantry every week that feeds about 400 people. We mobilize major events like Prayer on the Nine, which has about 2,000 to 3,000 people attended, where we march on 79th Street from Greenwood to the Dan Ryan. And we stand for different social injustices, protesting and just standing for whatever it is that the community needs. From the community development side, I've helped launch Art in Motion Charter School. That was a great partnership with Distinctive Schools and Common and Pastor Hannah, who was the leadership that I work under. And then recently, about a year and a half ago, I founded a nonprofit, the Chance Center. And basically, the Chance Center is a organization that helps people with housing, legal, and employment services. So I am so excited about being in this conversation because this is where my heart is. I live by the quote Martin Luther King said, is that anybody can be great because anybody can serve. And I'm just happy to be around a bunch of brothers who are giving their time to the need. So thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you, brother. Mr. Goins.
What's up, everybody? My name is Christopher Goins. I am currently the Chief Equity Officer of Thrive Chicago, and I am the Impact Community Leader for the My Brother's Keeper initiative, launched by President Obama in 2014. It's an honor to be in this space. I'm a native of Greensboro, North Carolina, but I live in Chicago now. What brought me to Chicago is that I launched a school, Butler College Prep, in the South Side of Chicago. I was the founding principal there, served as the principal there for 6 years, and just codified my leadership there and codified what I wanted to see in this world. And I tried to use my platform as a principal and my influence as a principal to improve life outcomes for boys and young men of color and children of color. I grew up in a space in the South, in Greensboro, where I was surrounded by historically Black colleges and surrounded by Black excellence. And I grew up in an ecosystem where our humanity was loved and it was cherished and it was nurtured. And so I know that that can exist in this world, and that is my aim. I want to help in some way, shape, form, or fashion, create the proper ecosystem for our kids to survive and thrive.
Awesome. Thank you, brother. Mr. Kleckley.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Henry Kleckley. I am an assistant principal at Jacksonville Lighthouse Charter School in the great city of Jacksonville, Arkansas, which is about 15 miles north of Little Rock. Met Brother Vondale back in our days at Oral Roberts University, what I call God's University. And man, my life's work is young people, ministering to young people in a variety of ways and serving. Coming up, I was raised by a single mother and my grandmother for the first half of my childhood. Then my mother got married and was raised in a blended family for the second half of my childhood. And that drove my life's work, being an at-risk youth in my teenage years, being expelled once in 6th grade and almost again my junior year. But it took real men of God and men of faith to really mentor me and show me a better way. And that inspired me to do what I do, what I've been doing for the last 16 years in public education, as well as in youth ministry. And I want to say thank you to Brother Vondale for inviting me on this platform to speak to young minds and hearts. And I thank everybody that's on the panel right here. It's an honor to serve and to be here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you for that introduction, my good brother, Mr. Sims.
Yes, my name is Dedrick Sims, and I am the CEO and founder of the Sims Fielder Foundation operating out of Denver. We currently operate in 7 states across the country. Our mission is to improve the life outcomes of young men and boys of color, but also to increase the capacity of those who serve them. So in that capacity, our foundation, we provide workshops and trainings around equity and diversity. We've impacted over 20,000 young men, in the last 5 years. We've opened 2 charter schools. I've been responsible for opening 2 charter schools, and we're looking to open up more in Detroit as well as in Fort Worth, Texas. What brings me to this work is that I was that kid. I was that young man. And if it wasn't for teachers who showed me something that was outside of my 4-block radius, I probably would have been a statistic. But my life has led itself to be an example for young men. Even the hard times in my life are now examples for young men. So I am super proud to be a part of this conversation, to be able to further the cause, the reach, the outcomes of young men and boys of color. So thank you, Vondale.
Thank you so much. Pastor Wright. There you go.
I'm sorry. Good evening, everyone. My name is Anthony Wright. I'm the pastor of Just Christ Ministries, where we believe in ministering to the whole person, spirit, soul, and body. I'm also a school social worker, as well as the executive director of Ring of Hope Youth and Family Services. And at Ring of Hope, we use interventions like boxing, double dutch, and mental health to try to offset some of the violence in our community. I am too also honored to be on this call. I thank you, Vondale, for our friendship and all the great work you're doing in our community. We're a mentor. You're just really a blessing. So I'm just excited to delve into this conversation and just tap into all this wisdom we have gathered here on tonight.
Amen. Pastor, thank you. Brother Danley, Mr. Danley, thank you.
How you doing, brothers? My name is Laverne Danley. I'm the owner of Lab4 Creations. We're a photography and video production company specializing in producing videos, particularly for nonprofits, small businesses, and obviously we do a lot of consumer work. I got to meet Vondale a few years back. He invited me to come do some photos over at Gary Comer, and I was just impressed by everything that I saw and wanted to just be a part of whatever this brother was doing. One of the things I pride myself on is that I've always felt that my role was to make, our people look good. So if we're doing photography, video production, any of that nature, I'm trying to make sure that we're putting our best foot forward. We're looking awesome and doing all the things that we should be doing as a people. And so I'm excited to be a part of this. I'm excited to help out any way I can. And as many people have mentioned, with Vondale as leading this group, it's nothing we can do wrong here. So it's a blessing to be here. Thank you.
Well, those are introductions. I want everybody to go ahead, type in some questions, start to dialogue, comment, share, repost. This is a very critical conversation, right? We're in a juncture in a space and time where people are looking for answers, solutions. And we've been having this conversation, the brothers that are on here now, we've been having this conversation for a long time in our own perspectives and our own conversations, employers, businesses, occupations. But tonight we want to center those conversations, and I want to glean into the experts and panelists that are here tonight. And so I want to go back to Brother Danley. And I have a question to ask you in terms of just entrepreneurship. My personal belief, and I feel like it's one thing to say, hey, I respect your work. Great job. That's cute. But what's powerful are reparations. What's powerful is economic development. And you, my brother, as an entrepreneur, right, can you speak to how do we as Black men share the work required to prepare our young men, our boys and young men of color, for the world ahead in terms of entrepreneurship? Can you speak to that, my brother? Unmute yourself. There
Can
we
you guys
go.
hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So what I was saying is one of the things I quickly learned during this process of being in business. I've been in business now for 20 years and had a consulting firm before doing this. And what you learn is that even though you might be good at something, it doesn't mean you should be in business doing that. And so I think as entrepreneurs, as business owners, we need to have dialogue with our young men. They have so much passion, so many desires that they say, I want to do my own thing, do this, that, and the other. And that's great. But they need somebody they can talk to, call upon, and say, hey, I am thinking about doing this as a business. Can you share with me the pros and cons? And we've got to start that dialogue sooner than later. So it's not like we're crushing dreams or telling them, no, you got to do it my way. But we're saying, hey, let's build a trust so that you can receive feedback from it. You don't always have to accept that feedback, but know that it's coming from a place of love. And then from there, let me help you and mentor you through this process. Because as a Black business owner, there's a lot of things that you find out quickly that you see somebody else doing that's non-African American or non-person of color, and you're saying, why am I not getting those opportunities? And it takes time, and it takes relationships, and it takes that extra effort of doing it over and over and over again, and doing it so well and taking so much pride in it that people just have to call you. They have to say, hey, this is the guy I'm going to call to get this job done, because I know when we turn it over to him, it's going to get done. It's going to get done. It's going to get done professionally. It's going to be polished. And so once you can establish that relationship in your work, or establish that standard in your work, it doesn't take long for people to notice, regardless of what color they are. And I'm blessed to have clients of all different races that respect me in the field that I'm in. And I believe that we have to have that conversation with young men of color, to say, listen, although you may be good at it, don't take a step back and say, hey, I'm not getting the calls, I'm not getting the opportunities. Talk to somebody who already been down that road, who can tell you, hey, you may need to go a little bit longer. You may try a little harder. You may need to polish it up this way, or you may need somebody that might make a phone call for you that already has a connection. But we have to open doors for them, prevent them from having to walk as long as we did in order to get to that goal, so that they can get there sooner and they can see the fruits of it. And then they can pass it on to the next person that they come in contact with.
This is coming in live from YouTube. The question is, as a young Black youth that has 1 year left in college, I'm planning on starting my business, but I'm frankly afraid to start. Any advice to start?
There's nothing wrong with starting a business and still doing the other things in terms of having a job. When I started my business, I was still doing computer consulting. So it wasn't a thing where I just said, I'm going to just quit my job and start my own business. I needed to have something that I could say, you know what, let me ease into this. And so sometimes you may need to stretch yourself further than you ever have to say, I'm going to build this business and I'm going to do this other thing. Maybe it's going to school, maybe it's, another career path that's going to pay you right. But there's nothing to say that you can't start your business and go to school. You're just going to have to push yourself further. And pushing yourself further sometimes is talking to somebody to say, what does that look like? I don't understand what that looks like when you say push yourself further. Call someone like myself or someone else that's been in business, and they can tell you that, your 9 to 5 might become your 5 to 9. Where you're having to get those extra hours to make your dream come true, because this is the time right now. Everybody's looking at young, African-American youth to lead the way in terms of new products, designs, all types of ideas. And so you got to go for it. And when I say go for it, do it smart, do it with support, do it with some guidance, some knowledge of people to help you out.
Powerful. I want to go over to Busayo because this is right in his lane. I have to tell everybody a story on how I met Busayo. He was a freshman at Gary Comer College Prep, and I will never forget, it was during lunchtime. And when I tell you, all the kids were in line getting their lunch, and he was sitting off at the lunchroom table by himself working on a math problem. And I remember going over to him and saying, why are you working on a math problem during lunch? Why are you not in the lunch line getting lunch like everybody else? And he said, I'm not behind. I want to stay ahead. And I will never forget this young man. And so all throughout his high school years, he was able to achieve greatly, believe carried a 4.0 cumulative all 4 years. Now he's in his senior year of college, right? Senior year, rising senior. So can you just speak to your journey as an entrepreneur, as a young entrepreneur, and what type of advice would you give somebody who's in high school thinking about going down your lane in entrepreneurship?
Yes, thank you so much for that, Mr. Singleton. I do remember that. And Yeah, so my journey is actually no different from any other entrepreneurs out there. When I first started, I've actually been involved with entrepreneurship for quite a while. I was born into it. My family, my dad, my brother are into entrepreneurship as well. So me being involved is also, not new. When I first started, I had the idea of buying and selling on eBay. So that's kind of how I started. And all of a sudden, I got this idea like, whoa, what if I, turn my passion, technology? I'm really excited about technology, and especially when it comes to like computer programming and things like that. And I was like, what if I, use something that I'm already passionate about, turn it into, use it to build a product that's gonna help people live better. So that's how I transitioned into, okay, let me start writing computer software, like programming, designing apps and so forth. And when I got to college, that's when everything changed. I was exposed to a variety of entrepreneurship ecosystem that I could take advantage of, and I did just that. Coming from the inner city of Chicago, I know how difficult it is to, find people like yourself, find opportunities and resources. But being the go-getter that I am, I was able to put myself out there, put myself in a very difficult situation, and get outside the box. And I know I'm a very shy kid, but me doing this to myself is a little bit challenging. But I still did it. I went after what I wanted, and so being a part of the community really shaped me to become the man that I am today. The leadership skills that I learned during the process was something that I won't trade it for anything else. And I'm really grateful to be surrounded by well-rounded mentors like Mr. Vondale Singleton and other my brothers on the call here today, and other members that are so yeah, thank you so much for that. um, my advice to upcoming entrepreneur or people who already started this journey but don't know how to go about it or the next phase, all I can tell you is just, go for it. Never um, trust the process. At the same time, don't discourage yourself. Don't listen to what other people are saying. I want you to follow your goals and believe in yourself, because not until you believe in yourself, like you have to believe in yourself, because this process can be difficult, right? If you have a goal and you feel like, well, this is, I'm going to get there, plan it out and execute. Don't just plan something, but you have to plan it out and also execute. And that's one thing that I think really sets me apart from other entrepreneurs out there, is that whenever I have an idea, I just don't, write it down and say, oh, I get to it tomorrow. I write it down and take action. And if I don't have that resource or the resources to actually get it done at the moment, I look for people. I look for talents. I try to put together a team and, okay, what do we need? How can we do it? And so with my first startup, like I mentioned, I was building a social media platform to connect college students with study partners. When I first started, this was freshman year in college. I didn't know what I was doing. It just came to me and I was like, hey, I'm struggling in chemistry. How can I, pretty much build a community where students can help each other out after hours? And that's sort of how the whole idea started. And by knowing people, networking is also a key. You have to, like I said, put yourself in a very uncomfortable situation and try to build a community, right? So I thought, well, how can I make this better for college students? How can I make the whole experience better? If I remember correctly, I used to go to office hours and I have to wait in line, pick a number, and it's like, wow, why do I have to wait in line when I can just, communicate with somebody on the phone and say, hey, would you like to study? So that's how I started, and it's been a very great journey for me. And with my current role as a CMO at Virtue Mind, I'm aspiring to, create a platform where people can receive the tools that they need to train their mind and become to live a healthy lifestyle. One thing that I noticed is that a lot of us aren't taking good care of our mental health, and it's that there's a stigma around it as well. A black man, speaking as a black man, I tend to keep everything within. I feel like opening up to somebody else might show a sign of weakness, so I tend to bottle everything in. So I realized that this is something we need to start talking more about. And I'm very glad to be a part of this conversation. And I feel like conversations like this is something we need to start having. So thank you so much, Mr. Singleton, once again.
Thank you. One highlight we got to share. So he was nominated a few years ago for the Spotlight On. So he actually got his roses at center court. Dwayne Wade got on the Jumbotron of the United Center and called this brother out. He went in the locker room area and had a chance to hang out. And that's what I love. I love to see us winning. And anytime you can put somebody ahead of you, right, and you know their heart is in the right place, he didn't ask for it, but he deserved it. And so to see 28,000 or however many thousand in United Center cheering his name, standing to their feet, give you goosebumps, you know, and he waving at everybody with the spotlight on him and Dwayne Wade on the Jumbotron just bragging on him. And so these are the highlights that I want people to see. These are the images that we have to tell ourselves about ourselves. That's why we don't give up in the process on our boys and young men of color, because you don't know what's on the inside of them. And I always tell them, when you blow up, just don't forget about me. Don't forget about me. But you well on your way, my brother. I want to shift the conversation to something that's, I believe, is very, 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 very important in terms of fine arts. So on this panelist group, we have Brother Corey Anderson, who's an actor, model. You've probably seen him in Chicago PD, Chicago Fire. I don't know how many shows he's been on, but this brother right here has a different perspective in terms of curriculum that needs to go into the educational system. And so my question for you, my brother, is how can we get schools to promote the fine arts, the entertainment inside of the curriculum of the schools? Because we know a lot of our young people are gifted and talented, and we kind of sway them away from that. So what's your insight on that?
So for me, my insight is pretty much, I'm in the process right now of writing up a proposal. It's more of a runway course and a male confidence course, which will allow young men to feel confident in the skin they're in, and also teach them the do's and don'ts of role models, of what role models should do in runway modeling. And also in this course, they'll also learn how to be confident in the skin they're in. Because a lot of times I see that the young men I do mentor, and the young men I do mentor outside of the Champs program and other schools that I go around to help out, they lack the confidence and self-esteem. They walk down with their heads down. So this course will be able to teach them how to be confident in the skin they're in and love themselves. So, and also if they're confident in doing a runway show that I produce, they'll be confident in their grades. They'll be confident in their schoolwork. They'll be confident in their sports and activity. They'll be confident in home life. So right now I'm writing a proposal. I'm writing down my goals and objectives of what I want to do in the long term. My long-term goal is to have this at every CPS school in the near future.
Wow. So that's the move. We cannot throw any of this away. Now, I'm about to pitch the conversation, and we can add to this. Panelists, feel free to jump in if you have anything or any insights. But Minister Shammrie Brown is also part of New Life, and I know that they just opened up a school around the arts. But I do want to shift the conversation, because we can't get to any of these things in terms of curriculum if our mind isn't right, if we're not fully engaged, because we're so traumatized by what we're dealing with and what we're seeing on a daily basis. So how do we, right, begin to dive into what Busayo talked about, the mental health component? Can you bring that in? What are you doing to make sure that you stand sharp mentally and engaged? And what can we do, and what can we share to our tribe and village?
If it's okay, I can jump off that part. I thought about this because mental health has been so important with what has been happening. And what came to me, how I could think about how I handled it, I thought about it in 3 P's. People, process, and prayer. And people is, I want every young man, young woman out there to know that who you surround yourself around impacts your mental health. What they say, their opinions, their thoughts, their behaviors, all of that has an impact on the way we feel and the way that we think. So I just want to encourage everyone to surround yourself with positive people, because despite all of the devastation that's going on, the goal is not for us to lose our hope or our faith. That's not the goal of being angry. The goal of being angry is to move you into action to do something about the problem. But it is not to make you say, I don't got no hope. I don't got no faith. Because then you're stepping into what is called nihilism. And that is not believing in nothing. And when you don't believe in nothing, that messes with your ability to be motivated to do something. So surround yourself with good people so that you can be able to help monitor your mental health process. Like he said, he held everything in. Some of us are internal processors and some of us are external processors. You have to put yourself in a safe place to process. How did you feel about that press release? How did you feel about seeing that video with George Floyd? How do you feel about the Black Lives Matter movement? Write it down, speak it out, talk it out, rap it out, say a poem about it. But that's going to process and that's going to relieve the mind. Because if the mind is overwhelmed, it will begin to shut down and take you into a place of anxiety and to a place of depression. So you got to process it out. Then the last thing for me, everyone may not have a faith base here, but just prayer. And I don't talk about it from a religious standpoint. It's talking to God. So it's talking to God. It's saying how you feel about what's going on. It's saying that you're frustrated, you're angry. God, what's up? What's going on? God, help me. God, I'm afraid. So that's how I help relieve my mental health. And there's this book I wanted to show you guys. It's called Cognitive Behavioral Therapy Made Simple. If we could put that in the chat, by Seth Gillihan. This book can help you be a therapist to yourself. And it helps you capture those thoughts and so that they won't control your behavior. Because what I learned in this book, and I won't be that much longer, is that automatically the brain makes us go to wrong behavior. Automatically. So we have to take ownership of our mind and start to control what we're thinking so that we won't get caught up in the wrong side of this fight. That's my 2 cents.
That's
about
powerful.
Mental health.
No, that's powerful. And I think it's so many layers to our experience, right? That we're actually processing everything right now just on this town hall. Like once we process something, it gets interrupted with something else. Then our attention gets diverted. We have to process that, then process that. I try to describe to individuals, and I really can't describe the experience of being a black man and how we are viewed, how we get microaggressions, how we go into the workplace. We have to carry our whole being, and yet we have to pretend that we're somebody that we're not in different spaces, in different rooms. And I've gotten to a place where I don't care necessarily what people think about me. I'm just my authentic self, because I have to live with me and I have to give an account to God what I do in my body. And I can't allow people to judge, ridicule, ostracize me, put me in a box, limit me. And so, man, thank you, because I want to build on that mental health component, because I believe is very important. Like I mentioned, Damian Howard, he touched on it last week, and we have conversations about this on a daily basis on what to do with these emotions, not to hide them, right? These emotions are natural. They've been given to us by God, but how we respond and what we do in terms of reaction versus response. The reaction is, I'm a just snap. But response is more thoughtful, right? And we don't have the privilege oftentimes to be responsive because things are happening so fast. So we put that book out, Cognitive Therapy. Make sure you look the book up, and we'll be bringing you back in. But I want to go to another brother who's on the ground. He's on the front lines, really, of all of this work that we're talking about, and that's Brother Goins. And I want him to come in and just answer a simple question and build upon it. What keeps you up at night, my brother?
What keeps me up at night? I go to this space and think about what is normalized in the workplace. And when I say the workplace, I can only refer to a place of education. an institution of education, because I'm an educator. And I firmly believe that education is the pathway to liberation for all people, especially Black kids. But it's important for who's actually educating our kids. But what keeps me up at night is that we now have an agenda. We now have a movement for criminal justice reform. And I think we are now going to start to see criminal justice reform being the acts of police officers who are racist and the things that are happening in the criminal justice system. Eventually, and very soon, I think that type of behavior that we have seen before will no longer happen. It's going to become normalized. But I also think about how can we do that in our education institutions? How can we normalize the behavior that we need to see out of teachers, out of schools, out of school districts, that properly benefit Black kids? And I want to charge this group, and I want to charge everyone that's the next movement after we finish protesting over George Floyd, Breonna, and Ahmaud, and all the others. We need to be protesting and fighting for racial transformation in the education system. And that keeps me up at night. I believe that our kids deserve to have teachers that look like them. I believe that schools should reflect the communities that they're serving. I believe that there should be equity when we think about how we pay for and fund education. And I want that behavior to be normalized, equity in education to be normalized. And the way that we do that is through policy changes, point blank period. In education, if you are teaching, and most of these gentlemen here, we all are like mentors or in the education space. And in education, you cannot say anything sexually inappropriate to one of your colleagues. You cannot say or do anything sexually inappropriate to a student. That is normalized behavior. It's in our handbooks. Why have we not made it normal for white teachers or systems to, like, why do we have to fight for that? That should be normalized. Microaggressions should be in HR policies. They should not be allowed to happen in a school space. You should lose your job just like we could lose our job if we sexually harass someone. And that's what keeps me up at night. This movement must transition, not taking anything away from the criminal justice reform, because we need that, but we all know about the school to prison pipeline. We have to address the power of education in this whole movement. And I'm getting worked up and I'm starting to sweat. Thank you, Vondale.
Come on, man. You cut that thing off right when it got good. We're going to come back to you, man. But thank you for bringing that up. OT just shared, stop treating the current model of discipline in the same model of the criminal system. They are creating the psychological pathway to the criminal path. And so big facts. And I think one of the things that we have to get to, and again, it's right on what Brother Chris just mentioned. After this is over with, what's next? What's the move? What are the responses? What are the answers? And again, I believe we need reparations. I believe that we need strategies. We need solutions. But the biggest thing, and we talked about this last week, we have to be unified. If there's ever a time for us to be unified, it is now. We don't have time or energy or space to be at each other's throat. And that's why I'm like, come on, y'all, let's get with the move here. Why are we still shooting at each other and killing one another? We had the most killings in Chicago over this past weekend in over 60 years, y'all. 60 years. Come on, wake up. What are we doing? And so I think we have this opportunity where people are listening for us to do some real reformation work, but we have to be unified. We have to be together. And so Brother Chris is on the front lines. I'm following behind him as he take the lead and pull us together around some of these unique proposals and plans that we're putting together on the ground. So I do want to go over to my brother from the South, my old college buddy. He's here. and he's an assistant principal as well, but he's also a pastor, a minister. And I want to bring in his voice on just like as a family man dealing with all of these different dynamics. How do you begin to balance and talk through faith, family, and community relations? Because I know that I'm involved in each sphere. I'm involved with the church, I'm involved with the school, I'm involved with the community, but I'm also a husband and a father. So can you give us some insight on that, brother?
Absolutely, man. And y'all done fired me up. All these lions in one arena, man. I'm just uber excited about this. But man, a scripture comes to mind, and I don't want to get too preachy, but I'm going somewhere. Proverbs 25 verse 2 says that it is the glory of God to conceal a thing, but it is the glory of kings to search out a matter. And here's the thing. We got too many kings seeking things and not searching out the matter. And of course, we're in this movement where Black Lives Matter. And so the question is, what is the matter? The matter is answered in Matthew chapter 6, verse 33, when Jesus himself said, seek first the kingdom and its righteousness, and then all these things will be added unto you. So when we talk about balancing faith, family, and community, we first start with faith by seeking the kingdom. But here's the thing about what Jesus said. He said, seek first the kingdom, not seek only the kingdom. So when there's a first, it implies there's a second, there's a third, there's a fourth, and a fifth. And so when it comes to my family, listen, men, anyone listening under the sound of my voice, what happens at the house does not stay at the house. I know we live in this generation. I was raised in a generation where they said what happens at home stays at home. But anything that we encounter, good, bad, or indifferent in society, starts and ends with nurture. I understand there's a debate between nature versus nurture, what's caught and what's being taught. And I'm telling you, brothers, that, man, a lot of what is happening in life and in society today is being caught as opposed to being explicitly taught. And so when we talk about faith, family, and community, I remember coming up as a young man in a single parent home, and everybody in my house had different last names. And I was frustrated in school when people would say, they would call my mom Mrs. Kleckley, and her name was not Kleckley, her name was Carvel, because my siblings and I had different dads. And I made a declaration at 11 years old that when I grow up, everybody in my house is going to have the same last name. And so here I am today. My wife and I met at Oral Roberts University. We have two beautiful children, and we understand that what we teach our children and how we engage with our family dynamic has a direct impact with what goes on in society. And when we talk about community, you have to have a level of vulnerability in order to be a part of a community. I heard Brother Adebayo say it so succinctly and explicitly when he stated that in order to be in a part of a community, community is not just what you offer a community, but it's also what you bring back from a community. So there has to be a level of vulnerability and a level of I don't know in order to process in a community, man. And so we're doing the work here in Arkansas. I got into education for this very reason. When I started at Oral Roberts University, I said, man, I want to get into ministry because I want to serve young people just like brothers served me when I was younger, but then found this space in the public education realm, which is why I'm glad I went after Dr. Goins there, because when it comes to education reform in this country, man, I believe that is the proactive work that needs to happen in order for us to see real systemic change. It starts with education, of course, but of course the criminal justice system does need work as well. But in my opinion, that is more reactive as opposed to being proactive. And what we're doing in the education system, what's happening in these schools on a daily basis has got to change. And so, man, I appreciate, again, the platform. I got a whole lot more I want to say, but I don't want to take over, man. So I appreciate it.
Hey, man, as you mentioned on the offset, we got some lions in here, and we hungry, and we ready to eat. And so, listen, guys, I'm telling you, I need for you to stop, pause right now, and share this with a young man who's confused. I had a mother call me today in desperation, and I'm not going to mention his name, but she called. She said, hey, Mr. Singleton, heard about your program. My son is 13 years old, and I'm afraid that he's going to be locked up or dead. Can you help me? And I said, that's what we do. Send him our way. So I hope he's on the line tonight, because I said, hey, we're going to be on the line talking about some solutions And I need for him to invest in his future, because the thing that Brother Brown was talking about was not giving up hope. And here's the thing that Brother Goins is talking about. This criminal justice system is a school of prison pipeline that we know is real. And so, as Brother Trey is bringing up, we have to be proactive, engaged. And this is the work of mentorship, is that we not waiting until they get locked up. We mentoring them so that they can be the Busayos of the world, so they can be the Nazarene Browns who was on here, the Aubrey Davises, the Thaddeus Jones, who've been on these virtual town halls as young men colliding with us all in the same space. So again, man, I'm just super excited that you guys are here, and I'm gonna take this over to Brother Sims, because this is a bad man right here. He's doing some phenomenal work as well, just like all of us. And I just want to hear a little bit more about what you're doing, brother. Why do you do what you do for young men and boys of color?
Man, first I got to acknowledge the power and the testosterone that's on this screen, man. I really appreciate that. And so, you know, the reason why I do what I do for young men and boys of color is because I was that kid. I was that young man who needed somebody like me, somebody like everybody who are in these boxes, to show them, to guide them, to mentor them, to lead them. I was that kid. I was that kid who had a mother who, you know, who was a drug addict, or who was a prostitute, who shot me twice. I was that kid. I was that kid who had teachers who changed my life. I was that kid who had teachers who showed me, who took an interest in the inquiry-based part of who I was. I was that kid. I was the kid that we're talking about. I was the kid who could have been a statistic. I was that kid. And so that's why I do what I do. That's why I started 2 schools. That's why I started an organization. That's why I wrote 3 books. That's why I started a foundation all around young men and boys of color, because I was that kid. Someone says that you need to be the solution that you desire, right? I am the solution that I desire. And hopefully, you know, God allows me to be on this earth to impact more and more and more. So what our foundation does is that we not only impact the kids, we impact those who are serving our kids and working with our kids to increase their capacity to deliver learning experiences, or to create authentic relationships and partnerships, so that they can do more good than harm. So I was that kid. That's why I do what I do. And to listen to, you know, to Goins and to Kleckley, and I mean, it just all feeds into my spirit, and it reaffirms me for doing what exactly that I am doing. And I also believe that education is the key. I think that when we're thinking about these matters around, you know, police reform, I am totally appreciative of it. I appreciate that, but that's reaction. I think when you look at education, that's being proactive.
Yes.
I pride myself in being proactive in creating young men who are walking into our country, who are changing the system, who are taking their rightful place as being leaders in this community, and who are understanding the power of what being a young man is, and being able to lead families and communities in the right way. I was that kid. If you don't remember anything that I say, I want you to remember that I was that kid. I was that kid. And God has blessed me to be able to go on and take those harmful experiences that I've been through and turn them into opportunities and realities for other young men. 20,000 young men that we've impacted. 20,000 young men, and also over 5,000 educators and police officers and youth workers and all of that, man. Like, we've been able to impact that. And I lead from a place of unapologetic place. I don't apologize for what is happening. I believe this: if there is a system out there who's unapologetically opposing us and presenting obstacles, right, then someone has to be on the other side just as unapologetic.
That's right.
Just as intentional, just as intentional, saying that, no, this is not how it goes. This is who we are. And this is the respect that we get. So, man, to be on this panel right here, right now, with all these kings on here and this testosterone going on, I am in heaven. So, thank you, Vondale, for inviting me to be a part of this. And I'm just, I'm ready.
Hey, man, tell us about the book real quick.
Oh, snap! That's right. So, my 3rd book is coming out. The book is called "Hey, Man, We Just Talking: Daily Conversations with Young Men." This book is a mentoring book with me and 12 of other, successful young men, successful men of color around the country who are mentoring to young men from the ages of 10 through 20. The good thing about it, man, is that the publisher 1L Group is going to produce 1,000 books at a time. And we started the release of the pre-release sale 2 weeks ago. The book doesn't come out until Monday, and as of today, we sold 820 copies.
Wow! Come on, y'all!
Almost sold out.
Come on, y'all!
Almost sold out, right?
That's
so
what I'm talking about.
We're already ordering 1,000 more. So not only is it a book for them to read, it is also visual components of me talking about it, and also visual interviews between me and the other contributors. I was that kid. I'm giving back to that kid. I'm giving back to the 10-year-old me. I'm giving back to the 15-year-old me. I'm giving back to the 20-year-old me. That's what I'm doing. So, man, dude, I'm gonna start crying on here, man, because this story is my story. I was that kid. I'm serious. I was that kid. I was that kid.
I was that kid, and we all saying we were too. Everybody on here, we were that kid too. And thank God for mentors, coaches, teachers, pastors who interrupted, right? And we did not become a statistic. So now everybody has a moral obligation to give back in a way. And we do this until we die. We don't do it until we done with work, till we retire, till we leave and stop. We do this until we die. And so Pastor Wright, man, you got to come in, woo, and talk about your story. Because a lot of people don't know your story. You were that kid for real, for real. And so you have a powerful story. And I want you to share a little bit about your story, but then tell us what you're doing now and who interrupted that.
Well, thank you for allowing me to share my story. I'm just sitting here listening and being blessed by all these brothers and just learning so much. I grew up on the south side of Chicago. My parents had me in the 8th grade. My mother and father were in the 8th grade when they had me. Unfortunately, they got involved in substance abuse, and I was raised by my grandparents. I was very fortunate to be raised in an intergenerational household. My grandmother, my great-grandmother, my auntie, and in that setting, I learned different values, work ethic. They got up before the sun rose. You woke up in the morning, you smelled coffee, you heard those feet pattering walking through the house. We had a cooked lunch, breakfast, and dinner. Even though I was raised in that structured environment, the allure of the streets got a hold of me. And I found myself in the 90s getting involved with selling drugs, gang banging, so forth and so on. I got shot at a couple of times. But they say when you train up a child in the way that he should go, he wouldn't depart. So all those things that my grandmother was instilling in me, and even the things that we're instilling in young people now, is not in vain. Because some plant and some water, but God will eventually add the increase. And so I was even in church, just going to church and just the religious aspect of church, but I began to understand that we have to really minister to the whole person, spirit, soul, and body. Because for the most part, it was just a religious experience. I was going to church, still selling drugs, still gangbanging, because back then you had to go to church, whether you want to go or not. And I used to hate being drugged to church, but I really appreciate my grandmother now for dragging me into church. And so just being in the church and then one day having an experience with God is almost like finally being able to connect the dots. Everything that my grandmother had been telling me and people had been telling me that never made sense before, eventually I started connecting the dots. And there are some young people watching right now, and what we're saying may not make sense, but because you are listening, eventually life will help you begin to connect the dots. So it took me being shot at, almost going to jail, to finally surrender and give my life to God. I got married to my wife. We've been married now about 28 years. We moved out to the suburbs, had a great life and what have you, got involved with ministry, and then God tapped me on the shoulder. And he said, I didn't save you for this. There was nothing special about me that God brought me out. And some of my friends are in jail, some are dead. And it wasn't that he loved me more than them. It was because he had a call on my life. He said, I want to send you back to the same community that you terrorized, you sold drugs in. I want you to build in that community. So we have a church in that same community. We've been here for 18 years. And 10 years ago, God told me and my wife to move back into the community. My wife was totally against it because our kids were about to go into high school. And you all know the fear of young Black boys in the inner city. So my wife was just totally against it. But I told her I knew it was God. And do you know the first year we moved into the city on the South Side, Gary Comer opened up that very first year. And so my son Joshua, he was a part of the inaugural class of Gary Comer. Now, they went to Gary Comer, and both of them got full academic scholarships for Northwestern University. So Josh is engineer, he's an engineer right now. My son Jeremiah, he's in his third year of law school. It wouldn't have never happened if we did not move back into the community. And because I'm from the community, I know a lot of the dynamics that are going on regarding the gangs and the drugs and what have you. And God has strategically placed us. If you look at the map of where we're located, it's a point. It's like a point. And we're placed right at this point in our community. And on either side of us, there are different gang territories. And so what we're doing now is we're trying to bring the two communities together. We started a project called One Community, Many Faces. And what we did was we did a real big mural, and we had people from different parts of the communities to submit pictures. And we wanted this big mural to represent how even though we look different and maybe from different parts of the violot, actually, we're still one community. And as a social worker, I work in the schools, and I just see firsthand, what's happening more so with our Black boys in terms of suspension, in terms of IEPs and medication being disseminated. I'm not really against medication, but there was nothing really going on to address some of the underlying issues. So I got involved with social work. Just kind of fast forwarding, what I was doing in the school was not enough within those so many hours. So we started an organization called Ring of Hope. And what the Ring of Hope does, we use boxing and double dutch as a way for young men and women to channel some of their aggression in a positive way, so we could then build relationships and also do counseling and provide other supports. We also have a food pantry that feeds over 400 people a week. We're developing mental health facilities. So we're just trying to do whatever we can to, once again, minister to the whole person, spirit, soul, and body, because coming to church is great. It addresses the issues of the spirit, but what about the soul? Education is great, mental health. What about physical fitness, exercise, diet? So we're trying to provide wraparound services for our community and also create referrals for people to get services we don't provide, so that nobody in our community can say, I didn't have any help. I didn't know where to go. There was nobody to help me.
And man, as you guys are digesting the powerful story that he's sharing, just last week, he opened up the church doors for us to do community service right there off 74th in South Chicago. And I watched him and his wife and his son give back their time, their energy, their resource. And he was just like, man, whatever you need, whatever you need. I asked him 3 times last week, and he was there all 3 times, not just opening up the church, but serving, taking out the trash, picking up the tables, greeting people, talking to people, showing them the land. And you can tell that the hand of God is on his life. But again, it started with his story. And we have to take the time to know the direction of young men and prophetically see where they will be, because he could have been locked up or dead. He was out selling drugs in the same neighborhood where he's pastoring. Y'all not hearing what I'm saying. On the south side of Chicago, right? Here's a man who fathered 2 sons who he mentioned, graduated from high school, graduated from college, beating the odds and coming back to serve that community. Now that's power right there. And that's why we do what we do. I know you may not understand it. I know y'all may be looking at us and saying, why they spending all this time with these knuckleheads? It's because, as Sim said, I was that kid. Come on, y'all. So it is, look, we can go all night. We only got 2 minutes to close, guys. I know it's almost 8:30. I want every panelist to give your closing remarks, starting the way we started off with Busayo.
Thank you all. Well, this was a very, very, very powerful session. I appreciate everyone, every speaker for sharing what they said, and I'm proud to be a part of this conversation. One thing I want to say before I go, if there's anybody out there that wants to learn more about entrepreneurship, or if you just need somebody to like show you in the right direction, please feel free to reach out. I'm definitely open to help guide you in the right direction. Yeah, thank you so much for this platform, Mr. Singleton.
Thank you, brother. Brother Anderson.
Thanks again. Thanks, Mr. Singleton, and thanks to all the brothers on here. I really appreciate everybody's insight. If anybody can help me, pull me in any kind of resource to help me start my class with the CPS students and Noble, I want to pitch it to as many people as I possibly can. If you guys can possibly help me, I would greatly appreciate it. You can get my email from Vondale. You can book me through my website, and I will gladly sit down with any of you guys to talk and how we can push it forward to make sure that we get these young men on the right path. And thanks again, and God bless.
Can you just give us your handle or your website as well?
Yes, my website is www.coryandersonthemodel.com. You can book me through there, and you can email me through there. It'll come to my phone.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Wow. I just want to thank you so much for this opportunity. I am so hopeful. I am so excited about the future. And the one thing I want to tell any viewer on here is that you have power. But what makes power effective is when you channel it into a purpose. So you have to bring your power into a goal so that you can push it towards something to bring something to change. You could write a letter. That very letter that you write to your state official could be the one that changed the game. Young folks, don't feel like you don't got no power or no voice. You can get a good group of people together and make a huge difference. You don't stay on the sideline. Get in the game, because we are going to be led by you. We need you. And I am praying for you. I am here for you. I want to give you 2 handles for Instagram for you guys to look up to help you. There's an Instagram handle, Black Mental Wellness. Black Mental Wellness. Black Mental Wellness has information about how to help with your mental health and give you tools and resources. And then another one is I have a blog that I write I write for the YouVersion Bible app at Black Man Theology, BLACKMAN Theology. And I'm talking about how to see God from the perspective of a Black man. Those are the 2 things I want to leave you with. I love you. I might not know you, but I do love you. And that's why I do what I do. It's out of love. So I just want to leave y'all with that.
Thank you, brother. Brother Danley, come on in.
Brothers, I'm full just listening to you guys. And, I guess the thing that I want to share with, anybody watching is, as you can see from this conference, it's just people who love you, people who care about you, people who look beyond what you might have on your outside, what your mask might be. They just see the true you and they want to help you. So as a business owner, if you need help, definitely reach out. I can do the best I can to guide you. However, I can help you with it. For the brothers on the call, anyone working with nonprofits, that's my area of specialty, getting those stories out, helping people get funding that they need. And so please reach out to me. I'm at Photography by Laverne Danley on Facebook. I'm at L Danley III on Instagram. And it's a blessing to be a part of this, Vondale. I thank you. Whenever you need me, I'm a call away. Anything I can do to help. God bless you, brothers. You guys are just a major inspiration tonight.
Thank you, Brother Danley. Brother Goins.
I'm full too. Thank you, Vondale. It's so great to meet all of you all and be in this space with every single one of you. Fully inspired. Thank you. It was a rough day. I needed this space. I just want to remind everybody that's watching, everybody that's on this panel with me, that what we're doing is all biblical. The name President Obama talked about, the way he named My Brother's Keeper, that is based on biblical principles and a biblical story. So what we're doing is ordained by God, and nothing can stop us.
Come on.
Absolutely nothing. And I do want to push everybody to continue the movement moving forward, that we need to bring attention to racial transformation in the education system. And this is the time to do it. We cannot allow any time to be wasted. Thank you, Vondale. I have no special handles. I'm just on Facebook, and you can just search my name.
Thank you, brother. Minister Kleckley.
So once again, I echo the sentiments of all the brothers on this panel. This has been an amazing experience. Thank you, Brother Vondale, for the opportunity. I want to leave you with this. George Floyd, his dying words were, "I can't breathe." And these words have a threefold meaning for me. One, literally, he could not breathe because he had the knee of a police officer literally on his neck. Number two, we're in the middle of a pandemic that literally attacks the lungs. The coronavirus attacks the lungs and replicates itself in the lungs.
Set it up.
So we can't breathe. And then, of course, number three, figuratively, the systemic oppression that is in this country, specifically when it comes to Black and brown people in this country. But for three, I can't breathe, there are also three remedies or three ways that we can resurrect and resuscitate this generation. And those three things are information. We've got to get educated. Number two, inspiration. We've got to find ways to inspire. That's why I thank my brother Corey Anderson for the arts. And number three, innovation. And that's what this platform is doing. And innovation is simply this. It's not about technology. It's not about all these bells and whistles. Innovation is simply this: making changes in anything that has already been established. And so information, inspiration, and innovation. You can follow me on Facebook, friend me on Facebook at Trey Kleckley, or follow me on Instagram at I am Trey Kleckley. Thank you, brothers, once again. We love you all.
Thank you, brother. Brother Sims.
I love Brother Kleckley, man. Only a pastor can weave words together like that, man. Yeah. I'm from Pine Bluff, man, so I know. Yeah, absolutely. So what I want to say is that to the young men and people who are watching, especially the young men, don't let anybody define your story, right? Don't let anybody define what excellence is for you. You know, don't worry about what they call you, right? They can call you whitewash, Uncle Tom, sellout, whatever it is. One day they're going to call you boss. They're going to call you king. They're going to call you for a job. So stay true to your excellence, and you'll see where it takes you. I love you, man. I love you. Peace out.
Thank you, Brother Sims. Pastor Wright.
Yeah, thank you again, Vondale. Thank you, brothers. I've been so blessed on tonight, just meeting you guys and hearing your stories. And I really want to kind of say something to you guys on the panel and other people who are on the front line doing this type of work. You know, vicarious trauma is real. And many of us, we're dealing with our own trauma, but then we're also dealing with the trauma of the people that we're serving. And so I know firsthand it could take an emotional and spiritual toll on us. And so I really recommend that we find ourselves in therapy, that we are accountable to someone, and that we prioritize self-care. Because if we don't take care of ourselves, we won't be around to do this work. And they need us. So we have to get in therapy, be accountable to somebody, have you accountability partner that you could talk to. Look, man, look, I want to quit. I want to give up. I'm tired. You need those people around you when you're weak. And also self-care. Find things you could do to unplug and recharge, because we need you in this work on the front line. I love you guys. God bless you. I was really blessed to be on here with you guys tonight.
Well, that does it for Virtual Town Hall tonight. We are actually in for a very, very, very special town hall on next week. The women are taking over. So we have Constance Jones, the CEO of Noble Network of Charter Schools. She will moderate next week. I don't know who she's bringing on, but she has the platform for next week. And hopefully we can get a dialogue going on the women's perspectives on solutions for boys and young men of color. And I'm going to say this to our queens. Please support your brothers. This is y'all movement. We behind y'all fully. Y'all rising up in leadership and in power. Don't throw us away. Please, I'm begging you. We have to stick together. We have to come together if we're talking about transforming the world. And this is our time. They're listening. They're watching. And so, again, be ready to tune in on next Thursday. But I want to thank all of the panelists on tonight for giving up their time and sharing wisdom. We're going to continue to add to these conversations, and we're in partnership with some of the brothers that are on here that are doing some amazing things. So we all going to continue to support one another. You will not be able to divide us. So again, rewatch, share, and tune in next week. Thank you for your time.